welcome to episode 5 of draft season. Coming to you on a Sunday now. The combine is finished up. I was planning on talking about day 1 on Thursday and then talking about the rest of the combine next week. But something came up and I was unable to do my show on Thursday. But I honestly think this is better since I can talk about all 4 days actually. So defensive linemen and linebackers were on Thursday. Defensive backs and tight ends were on Friday. The day that everyone watches, Saturday, quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. And then Sunday were offensive linemen. That just finished up a couple hours ago. So starting off with the defensive ends / edges. James Pierce Jr., edge from Tennessee. I want to say he's my number 5 edge. Let me just pull that up real quick. No, he was a lot lower for me actually. Number 7. That just shows how good of an edge class this is. But no surprise, I knew he was a speed guy. He ended up running a 4.47, which is really good for a defensive end. A guy who really stood out this on Thursday was Shamar Stewart. I was a bigger fan of the other Texas A&M Nick Scorton, but I think the more I've watched him, the more I've really liked him. Another guy who I've also said that I wasn't a big fan of, Landon Jackson, edge from Arkansas. He ran a 4.68, but Landon Jackson ended up having a 40.5 foot vertical, and then 10 feet 9 inch broad jump, which was the best vertical jump out of the edges, and then the second best broad jump out of the edges. And then I didn't look at the bench presses at all. It looks like he declined to do that. A lot of these top guys, I believe Mike Green is the only one of the top edges who did the bench press, and he ended up finishing with 28 reps, second in the edge class. Yeah, but like I said, 40-yard dash, James Pierce is the fastest. But going on to the linebackers here, Jahad Campbell from Alabama really stood out. Ran a 4.52 40. Had a 1.53 10-yard split. Had a 10'7" broad jump, which put him at second in the linebackers. Didn't run the 3-cone drill. Just looked all around really good in the drills. I haven't watched much of his tape. At some point, I'm going to watch a lot of linebacker tape, so I'll be excited to watch him. But Jahad Campbell was really the only guy who really stood out of all the linebackers. I am excited to watch him, like I said. Ended up scoring a 9.85 on the RAS, which is Relative Athletic Score, which goes up to a 10, which is a very good score. I believe that puts him the best out of all the linebackers, I'm pretty sure anyway. Then we go on to defensive tackles. A guy who really did not look good this whole week, or on Thursday, was Joshua Farmer. Ended up running a 5.11 40, and which is fine, but he did have a good Senior Bowl performance. He had a really bad 10-yard split, bad 40-yard dash. Weighed in at 305, 6'3", but had a good broad jump. I still think he can be good. He scored a 6.98 on the Relative Athletic Score. Not great for a guy who was projected to go in the second round the last couple of weeks. Going on to day 2, we had the defensive backs and tight ends, which we went over tight ends a couple weeks ago. Terrence Ferguson ended up running the fastest 40-yard time for the tight ends, a 4.63. Harold Fannin Jr. I think he tested about where they thought he would. He ended up ranking second in the production score based on these next gen stats out of all the tight ends, and then sort of 76 on the athleticism score, which is eighth. I've said before I thought he looked a little slow on the tape, and I don't know how he's going to be able to be at the NFL level. I'm just not a huge fan. Like I said before, I believe I had him as my sixth best tight end. I still think he can be I think he can be a starter in the league. The combine is always so much fun, but usually you shouldn't put too much stock in it because it really is the underwear Olympics. As much fun as the combine is, and looking at the numbers, I always prefer to watch the film and then see if the numbers back it up. If the numbers back it up, it gives me more confidence in those players. But there are some guys who just don't perform well at the combine, but still have great tape, which is someone we'll talk about soon. Another guy I talked about, Jake Ringstool, I was a really big fan of, Clemson tight end. I thought he was going to run a lot faster than this. He ended up running really slow. He ran a 4.75 40, which I was very disappointed with. Made me question my whole scouting. So I might have to go back and watch a little more. I didn't really think he looked that slow in the tape. He had a 4.75 40, like I said, 1.6 10-yard split, 31-inch vertical jump, 9'7" broad jump, and then didn't participate in any other drills. He scored 62 in the athleticism score, so 18th out of all the tight ends, which is very disappointing. I don't know. I might have to watch a little more. But like I said, don't put too much stock into the combine. It really is just that there's no pads on. You can't be too sure, but it is fun. Gunnar Helm ran a 4.84, which I just found out. I thought he was going to run a lot faster than that, but I just found out that he injured himself on his run and ended up running through. I want to say I saw some stuff on Twitter where his whole foot was bruised and it looked really bad, but he should be fine for the season. It was just for this week. Ended up still running through it, so that just shows his toughness. Obviously didn't perform that well with that injury, but had a 1.69 10-yard split and then a 30-inch vertical, then 7.15 3-cone drill, and then a 4.4 20-yard shuttle. Didn't do the bench press or anything, but Terrence Ferguson actually he performed a lot better than I thought he would, because he also had the best vertical, 39 inches. And then Harold Fenton Jr. actually did better in the 3-cone than I thought he would. He finished second out of the tight ends, 6.97. But yeah, Terrence Ferguson really impressed. Also had third best broad jump at 10'2". But I believe that's all the a lot of, as you'll see, a lot of the top guys that I've talked about before did not participate, which I get. You don't want to hurt your draft stock more than it already is. A lot of the late first guys will do it though. A guy I've talked about before, Mason Taylor. He is my fourth best tight end. This is actually a really good tight end class, like I've said before. He did not do any of the measurables, but he did do a lot of the drills and looked pretty good. But don't put too much stock in the drills either, because it's just you running with no one in your face, no pressure. It's easier to look bad than good in these drills. But let's move on to the corners. or defensive backs. Travis Hunter did not perform. A guy who I really started to notice, Caleb Ransaw, defensive back from Tulane. I saw him listed as a safety, which really surprised me because this is the first I've really watched him. He looked really good in the drills. Ran a 4.33 40. So really good for a corner. Well, corners are usually the most athletic guys on the field. But I don't know where he's mocked now, but I'd love to see him be developed into a top guy. A guy who really hurt his stock, Malachi Starks. He did not look great. He ran a 4.5 40, 1.51 10-yard split, 33-inch vertical jump. Didn't do the broad jump. Did a 7.26 three-cone drill. 4.45 20-yard shuttle. Ranked 19th in athleticism score. Does rank second out of the safeties in production. A guy who I'm excited to watch. I am probably gonna do a podcast about the defensive backs. Hopefully I get to them. I probably will. But this guy, Billy Bowman Jr., he's 5'10", 192 pounds. I'm excited to watch this dude. He's a safety. Ended up running a 4.42 40 time, which put him at fourth out of all the safeties. Nick Emanuari from South Carolina, another safety prospect, first in production score, first in athletics score out of all the safeties. Ran a 4.38 40, 1.49 10-yard split, 43-inch vertical jump, 11'6" broad jump, 20 reps on the bench press. He had a really good showing out of all these guys, and ended up measuring in really well. 6'3", 220 pounds, 9-inch hands, 32.5 inch arm reach. But more of these corners. Denzel Burke, he's one of the. I've seen him being mocked. I think earliest is probably second or third round I've seen him. But he did not test that well. Ran a 4.48 40, and then also ran the 10-yard split. Ended up finishing 14th out of the corners in production and 19th in athleticism. Came in at 5'11", 186 pounds. Another guy who I've seen out of Kansas, Kobe Bryant, spelled Cobee. I think he finished dead last in athleticism, but sixth in production. So ran a 4.5 340, 1.56 10-yard split, which is fourth last in the 40 time and fourth last in the 10-yard split. But I think that's most of the corners I want to talk about in here for testing anyway. And then moving on to day 3, everyone's favorite day, quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. Let's start with quarterbacks since there were not many. Only 3 quarterbacks did the 40. Brady Cook, Tyler Shaw, and Seth Hennigan. Brady Cook actually ran a pretty good time, 4.59. Tyler Shaw 4.63, and then Hennigan ran a 4.76. Good on these guys for doing the 40. Will Howard ended up joining in the vertical jump. Ended up tying for the worst vertical jump out of all the QBs, 31.5. At the combine, Will Howard, every time he'd come up to throw, he'd either get booed or cheered, which it's interesting decision. Personally, I wouldn't do that. That probably put a lot of stress on him. He didn't look in his throwing. I think I've said before that I'm not a fan of him. But in all the stuff he did not test well, and did not look good in on-field workouts either. A guy who really impressed me, who I've been saying I've liked more and more every week, Jackson Dart. I get it. It's the end of Winter Olympics. There's no one in his face. He should be throwing perfect balls, but man, he looked really good. His balls were perfect. His deep ball looked great. I want to say he only missed one guy on those deep balls. I've heard people say that they'd like to see a bit more arc on his deep ball, but personally, I'm fine with what it was. He has a really good arm. I want to say he threw for 58 miles an hour, which is above average. I want to say the top throw was like 63 miles an hour a couple years ago. I think that was Joe Milton or Josh Allen, one of those two. Dylan Gabriel also did the on-field workouts and looked about as good as he will be in the league. I think back at quarterback at best. Let's see what he weighed in at. Came in as 5'11", 205 pounds. I thought he was going to be closer to 5'10", which is better, but still not great to have a quarterback under 6 foot. But that's pretty much all the quarterbacks. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, neither of them threw. I think all Shedeur Sanders did, though, is hurt his draft stock. Definitely prospect fatigue has come on about Sanders. A lot more people are starting to steer away from him. They're saying that the best they could see him taken is at the Raiders at 6, which I think it's a bad idea for the Raiders to take a quarterback. They have pretty much one good player on that offense, and it's Brock Bowers. They need to build that team up before they invest in a quarterback. And personally, I wouldn't want to draft a average quarterback in the first round. I think Shedeur Sanders is average at best. So I believe they should build their offense up, and then in the future wait for a better class of quarterbacks. Or they could take Jackson Dart in the second round, which I believe he'll probably make it there. I'm excited to see where Jackson Dart goes. I have no idea where he's going to go. But I hope I don't see him play next year, though. I want him to sit for a year, learn a little more. But that's all the quarterbacks. Moving on to running back. Gentry did not perform, which was fine. I think he'd only hurt his stock if he ran. A guy who I've talked about before, I think, Bashal Tutton from Virginia Tech. I said I wasn't a big fan of him, but I knew coming into this he was going to perform really well in everything. I believe he ran the fastest 40 of the combine out of the running backs. Yep, 4.32. Ran the fastest, had the fastest 10-yard split, 1.49. Highest vertical, 40.5 inches. Fourth best broad jump, 10 foot 10 inches. He just had a really good week. I'm not really a fan of his still. I think I knew he was going to test well, but he's not an NFL running back to me. He just doesn't see the holes well, and can't break tackles as well as I'd like him to. But I was excited to watch him, but he was very disappointing for me. Jaden Blue, second fastest running back, ran a 4.38. I didn't expect that. I'm going to have to watch more Jaden Blue film. This running back class is so stacked. My second favorite running back, one of my draft crushes, TreVeyon Henderson, was a little disappointed with this time. I thought he was going to be in the 4.39 range. He ended up running a 4.43, which is still good, but not as good as I expected. Marianne Hampton, he ran about where I thought he would. I thought he was going to be in the 4.45 range, 4.46. I thought he had a really good showing all week. He's going to be a solid back wherever he goes. He has been getting a lot of first round talk this week, which I think he should deserve. I believe he's my third best running back right now. Um, I really like him. He's not he's just really good at everything. I don't think he excels at anything really. He's just really good at everything, which is great to have. Quinshawn Judkins ran a 4.48. That's about where I thought he'd run. I thought he did pretty well this week. I think I've been hating on him too much lately, only because of Travion. But Judkins will be a great back in the league. I'm just more partial to Travion. Judkins had a 92 in the athleticism score, which is second out of all running backs. More running backs that I've talked about before. Jordan James was a little disappointing. I thought he was going to be in the 4.45 range. Ended up running a 4.55, which I was a little disappointed with. I thought he looked good in the on-field field drills, but just a little disappointing in his 40 time, which 40 times aren't everything. They don't really matter that much, to be honest. A guy who surprised me, though, Donovan Edwards. I didn't realize he had the speed in him. I thought he was a lot slower. I thought he was going to be in the 4.5s, 4.6s maybe. Ran a 4.44. Impressed me. I'm going to have to watch some more Donovan Edwards film. I probably will do a deep dive into running backs eventually. I believe I've talked about them briefly. But Rashard Smith ended up having, what did he have? From SMU. I liked him at SMU. I didn't think he's anything amazing. I think he can be a good guy, though. 5'10", 194 pounds. Ran a 4.39 40. So that really impressed me. But he had the top end speed, but kind of a slower 10-yard split. Usually you want guys who can accelerate quickly over top end speed for running backs. For the vertical jump, Cam Scatabo did a 39.5 inch vertical, which he did not run the 40, and I think that's a smart decision. He was probably going to run a really slow time, 4.5 or 4.6. I think that's the right decision. A guy I've talked about that I don't like that much, Caleb Johnson, running back from Iowa. He's been talked about as I think the consensus third best running back lately. I just don't like him that much. I heard people saying he might be a 4.3 guy, low 4.4s. I didn't see that speed anywhere on the film, and it showed here. He ran a 4.57. Very slow time. And then a guy I didn't like before, but I knew he was going to run slow. He's more of a bruiser. Ollie Gordon ran a 4.61. And then Ulysses Bentley, the fourth. I've watched him. I thought he can be an average back in the league. Ran a lot slower than I thought he would. I didn't think he'd run that fast, but he ran a 4.62, worst 40 time out of all the running backs. And I believe that's almost all the running backs I wanted to talk about. Jarquez Hunter, I'm going to have to watch more of him. He ran a 4.44 40. Trevor Etienne, who I've been a big believer in. I think he's being very overlooked right now. He should be. I think he should be looked at a little bit closer. But he's probably going to end up going 4th, 5th, 6th round, day 3 guy, which I think he can be a good rotational back in this league. And then another guy I'm going to have to watch, DJ Giddens. He ran a 4.43 from Kansas State. I'm excited to watch that guy too. A lot of running backs I'm excited to watch. But moving on to the wide receivers. All right, I got to talk about it. I've said before, My guy is Tez Johnson. I love Tez Johnson. Just love the film. I was expecting him to run in the 4.3s. Not even close. He ran a 4.51, which is outrageously slow for a guy who is 5'10" and 154 pounds, who is expected to play at the highest level of football. That is extremely concerning. I thought if he wanted to be drafted second, third round, if he wanted to be drafted day 2, he was going to have to run in the 4.3s, maybe a 4.2, and completely got nowhere near that. 4.51, 1.53, 10-yard split. He did well in all the other in all the other drills though. Was 4th in broad jump, 10'11". And then I knew he was going to be great at the three cone drill. Had a 6.65, so easily best out of all the wide receivers. That's what he's great at, though. He's great at quick changes of direction, which comes across immediately on film. He looks extremely explosive, and that in the 3-cone drill is all about explosiveness. But he did also looked really good in the on-field workouts too, except for he did have one catch. I was talking to a friend and then about him and his disappointing time, and then as I was watching him, he dropped a really easy ball that was right in the bucket. I believe it was a Jackson Dart throw too, but that was extremely disappointing. But moving on to the other wide receivers now. Matthew Golden, not the fastest Texas receiver we thought, or we did not think he was going to be the fastest Texas receiver. Isaiah Bond, the other Texas receiver, he said that he was going to be the fastest. He was going to break the record. He was going to be in the ones, low twos. And I believe at the time, unofficially, it was a 4.4. It was like a 4.41 40, but officially now it's a 4.39, which is nothing to laugh at, but it's very funny to laugh at him since he said all that. Just he couldn't back up the talk. But Matthew Golden ran a 4.29. I believe that was the fastest. Second fastest. Oh, I forgot to talk about. Back it up real quick. Way back to day 2 with the corners. Maxwell Harrison set the fastest time out of all players, 4.28.40, and then Darian Porter, third fastest time out of all players, 4.3.40. Porter out of Iowa State and Harrison out of Kentucky. They both looked very good also. But back to wide receivers, Matthew Golden, 4.29. Deontay Thornton Jr. I got to be honest, I have not watched any of this dude. I'm going to have to. 6'5", 205 pounds, 4.340. That's ridiculous. I'm going to have to watch this dude. I've heard he's more of a project, so I don't expect him to be that good on the film, so he's probably going to be a developmental guy, going 3rd, 4th round. Ty Felton tested really well, 4.37. But whenever I was watching him with the on-field workouts, he was making careless drops, which kind of upsetting, since he tested very well. But Shamir DK ran a 4.34.40, third fastest out of all wide receivers. Then the Iowa State boys, Jalen Noel, ran a 4.39, and then the other Iowa State guy, Jaden Higgins, he ran faster than I thought he would. I thought he was going to be in the 4.5s, ran a 4.47. I was very impressed. He's the extra receiver out of the Iowa State guys. I really like him. I'm excited to watch more of him. But a really fast group of everyone, really. Wide receivers were fast, running backs were fast. I believe my third best wide receiver, who has been really slept on lately, Luther Burden, ran a 4.4 140. I believe he should easily be a first-round pick, and I've heard him starting to slip out of the first round and go into the second, which I think he's going to be a steal wherever he goes. I think he has all the tools to be number one wide receiver in this league. A guy I'm going to have to watch a little more, Torrey Horton from Colorado State, 4.4 140. I've heard good things from him. But another guy, freak athlete, that I've watched and was not a fan of at all, Savion Williams, didn't even run as well as everyone thought he would. He ran a 4.48, which is not great for a guy who can't really catch and a pure developmental guy. Nick Nash, I believe he won the Triple Crown. Yeah, won the Triple Crown for wide receivers. I didn't really expect him to perform that well, but 4.5 740. That being he's a group of 5 guys, San Jose State. He'll probably go day 3, 4th, 5th round guy. Ricky White III, I was expecting him to be in the around the 4.44 range. Ran a 4.61. That's probably going to tank his stock a little bit. Guy I've not been a fan of, Pat Bryant, ran really slow, 4.61 also. And then I think we're going to end this with Josh Kelly, with the slowest time out of all the wide receivers, a 4.7. Then lastly, we're going to talk about offensive linemen real quick. Jared Wilson, center, ran the fastest 40-yard dash, 4.84 out of all the offensive linemen. And then the fastest tackle, Armand Membo, ran a 4.91. I am excited to watch this dude a little more. I think I've had him as my best tackle. I don't really remember, but I'm going to have to watch a little more of his. I really liked him. I've been a big fan of Tate Ratledge. I feel like he's been going underappreciated. I ran a 4.97. Also had the best 3-cone drill, 7.38. Gray Zabel had the best vertical jump, 36.5. And then best broad jump was Armand Membao. My guy, is not my guy, Will Campbell. I've been very anti-Will Campbell lately, especially since he's being mocked to my Chicago Bears a lot, which I'm not a fan of. I don't like him. I don't think he's going to be good in the league at all. I don't think he's worth the first-round pick. But he tested well. Ran a 4.98 40. 5th best 40 time. Was 9th. He was 9th in the vertical jump. And ended up scoring 88 on the athleticism score, which is 4th out of all offensive tackles, which I'm not sure how many tackles were scouted. They also have Zabel as an offensive tackle. But I think that's all I'm going to talk about. Really fun week. Always fun to have another event. I believe we got pro days coming up, so I'll be talking about those in between talking about different position groups. I'm undecided on what group I'm going to talk about next week. Might be running backs. I'm not sure yet. But anyway, thanks for listening, and catch you guys next time.